in round figures, $500 million times 10 years. So it's a $5 billion methodology to be happy with or to fine-tune. What I'm trying to say is that those discussions where you provide a steer to staff this month are critical to whether the LTP can be delivered in draft form by June. If staff have a clear understanding of what they need to build, that June date will be safe. But if they don't, it'll be difficult. So that's probably the key risk on the horizon. At the moment, we're fine, but that's the shape of things to come. I probably won't line by line the update there. There is some ambers around asset plans and around the capital program development process. The explanations are pretty clear. What I would foreshadow, if you just bear with me for a moment, I've talked about the FS on the 24th of March briefing, capital prioritisation towards the end of the month. There's also a need to be very committed and confirmed about LTP timings with Council. What traditionally happens, and has happened in every LTP that we've ever done, is that urgent things bump the LTP and we end up in backlog, and that backlog is a penalty for you because you end up with long sessions that you don't really need. The whole point was to do little and often. So the LTP is in the unfortunate position of being important but not urgent, and so it gets bumped. So there's a need to lock those time slots down with Council. And lastly, EAG, the External Advisory Group, meets for the first time on the 18th. My understanding is that that's a meet and greet for the members and for them to start to talk about what their program of work might look like. So that's the status of the project at the moment, and the risks are the ones that I just outlined.
Thank you. So we're ahead of where we have been before. It's good to have the EAG in place. Obviously, the two previous decisions made at this committee around the appointment of the chair and the members of the EAG, and it's good to hear that they've got a meeting date in the diary very soon. It's also, I mean, whilst you've identified a risk, it's good that that's a risk that's within our control as a group of governors. Clearly, there's a schedule of briefings coming up where staff are intending taking guidance from elected members. Really just to stress that those briefings are very important. The guidance that staff need obviously is key to the way that they, as Peter has said, continue to build the LTP from there. So it's really good to get the diary populated with those early. They're, as I understand it, mainly going to be on Tuesdays, which are set aside for briefings in any case. But attendance at those briefings is going to be essential if we're going to get all of those issues raised as they need to be, so that staff can take into account any matters that we want them to do further work on and the guidance that we're giving. Chief Executive, did you have some further comment on that?
I do, Chair. We have agreed as a collective, as governance and management, that we are approaching the LTP process earlier and co-producing that together. I cannot stress enough the requirement of attendance of members at those meetings. We are working very hard to take your views on board. I need you there. If I don't have all those voices, then the LTP will not be as good as you or I want it to be, and I can't be any clearer than that.
Thank you. Leanne.
Just and congratulations on how far you've come. You know, it is such a substantial difference from where we've been in the past. And I think just to highlight the EAG appointment timetable, you know, the late appointment last time and the late provision of their advice and support into the LTP process itself meant that they were reporting after we'd gone out for public consultation rather than being an input into it. So really appreciate the update on that. And I guess just the question, I mean, I know that it's impossible to say, can we please not have any emergencies or crises or disasters befall our city over the next few months, because those are the sorts of things that push this to one side. Yes. So you're suggesting that even in the context of something urgent happening or a crisis occurring, that we maintain the commitment to meeting the timetable for the briefing, so that we're continually feeding into the process, so that when it comes time for the consideration of a draft LTP, which we can start to socialise publicly a lot earlier than we were able to last time, then that we've really got to make that commitment to do so regardless of what happens.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's floods, fire, doesn't matter.
Noted.
Okay. So you just make sure there aren't any. Right. Okay.
Thank you. Just on the question of alignment, obviously there are a number of pieces of work that need to come together as we form the draft LTP, and there's a need for alignment around timing and a joined-up approach. Peter, you're confident that the infrastructure strategy, the service plans and the asset management plans are all going to converge into the one place at the right time?
Yeah, the purpose of 1 June, when those products are designed to be available, is to be realistic. They probably won't be perfectly aligned at that point. They will have been built more or less as components. But the purpose of having 6 months up our sleeve was then to test the alignment. Yep. Actually, building things in a silo is pretty easy. It's the alignment that's the hard bit, because they're very chicken and egg, and the moment you tweak one thing, it has impact somewhere else. That cause and effect is the hard bit. And to be honest, we've almost never got to that part, because we've been so just in time that just having the components was the bar. But this is now a more sophisticated level where we've got, if all goes well, we have 6 months to test that alignment, and as councillors make changes, to ripple that through joined up components. That's new territory for us. So what I'm trying to say is, come 1 June, you'll have the components. But whether they're all joined up perfectly, I'd be surprised if they all are.
Yep, but then obviously that's the purpose of those briefings and the opportunity for feedback and input,
Yes.
and the luxury of time. So the
Yes.
key message is we're ahead of this, but we need to work to make sure that we stay ahead of it and use the time that we've created to really do work in more detail than we've done in LTP processes before.
That's right.
Thank you. Further questions? Yanni.
Thanks. I just had 2 questions. One is, do you think we've enabled sufficient time for the community boards to be engaged? I see there's only 2 kind of briefings with them.
Well, they're going to be engaged at the pre-engagement process, so this year. They'll be engaged in the draft process towards the end of this year, and they'll be engaged again during the formal consultation process. So we can build more in, but there's actually never been this level of engagement with them before, including Mr. Phil Sell's very detailed process around aligning their community plans with before the draft LTP occurs. So we've never actually been as far into the game as we are on this one. And I don't know if John wants to speak to that, but there's a lot of thinking about how to get those community plans into the build of the LTP, as opposed to trying to make a draft respond to those plans and hammer a square peg into a round hole.
Right. Okay. So that's good to get that clarity. So the community boards need to really focus on the community board plans to inform the LTP.
Correct.
Stuff they want to do ahead of that. Obviously, we've got a year,
Yes.
a year and a half. That just needs to be through a separate process.
Well, that's right, but the plans are, I believe, John's primary mechanism for the board's influence on the draft LTP.
That's good to know. And then the second question was just, I'm still sort of not sure. You've got a section on strategy, planning and policy, but I still don't quite have a picture of all the implementation plans that we've committed to as part of all the strategies that we've recently developed. When are we likely to get some sense of what those commitments are at a very high level, and whether there's any opportunity to just reflect on that direction, or whether it needs to be amended given the resource it may require?
Look, it may be for Brendan to field. And my understanding is there's an update coming on the strategy and policy work program, which is not that is this year as of now, but that could have a bearing on the LTP discussions. So I don't know, Brendan, if you want to speak to the update. It's pretty soon, isn't it?
And that will include the implementation and timeframes?
So we're proposing an update with a workshop style format with councillors. We'll be able to talk about all those issues at that time. I think it's scheduled for the 24th of March off the top of my head.
Okay, cool. And so just the final clarification on that. So things like the integrated water strategy, that will be part of that in terms of the commitments that we've made, how we're tracking and what the resource required is to deliver? Is that kind of as an example?
No, we're not proposing to get to the level of detail about workshopping each of the how you give effect to a strategy, but I think that's something that we should talk about on the day.
Thank you, and that's coming up soon. So now I've got Sam, Sarah and Jimmy. Sam.
Sure. Like mine was only a bit of feedback, and I don't know if it's better directed at Leanne or Dawn, but maybe on those briefing days, given the importance of the LTP, we do it first up in the morning. So after informal launch, straight into it, given the significance of it. I always find that's more effective.
I've already made a note, which I'll be discussing with the Chief Executive, around highlighting what briefings are coming up and when they're going to be. But the reality is Tuesdays are set aside for briefings anyway. But yeah, to get these in the diary early so that people can know that they're coming and prepare for them would be good.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, like in any agenda or anything, you normally put the most important things at the beginning of the day. So I would like to see that if we can.
Let's have a look at whether that can be accommodated.
It's not about not being there, it's about the focus.
I'm sure we can accommodate that, though everybody thinks everything's important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on other matters that need to be briefed, timetables, when we've got externals coming. There are a number of factors that come into play. But, yeah, certainly making it easier for people to know what's coming up and so that we get full attendance is key, as we've heard. Thank you. Sarah. All right, thank you. Jimmy and then Anne.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Regarding to the work streams, the item 6, activities plans. At the moment, how many the activity plans?
There's about 27, 28, I think,
Okay.
from memory.
All those the activity plan, whether it's all on the long-term plan, the calendar, particular focus on the page 115 and 116, these 2 pages. So give the mayor and councillor will have opportunity to review those one.
If you're
Whether like a library, the solid waste, assisted housing, whether that's part of this activity plan.
yes, those are all activity plans, and the schedule is there on your report. That's been through the LTP project team, and the CEO recommended it come here.
Yes.
So that there's certainty about what you'll be reviewing and when.
Yes.
So that if a councillor has a particular interest in a particular activity, they know what date it will be on months out.
Okay, so it's under this 2 pages, the schedule.
Yes, it gives you the
Calendar.
date, even the amount of time set aside.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anne.
Just a quick question. Unfortunately, I was in Dunedin yesterday and missed the workshop. Is there an opportunity that those of us who weren't there could have a catch-up?
Yes, we can set something up.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, so I'm happy to move this report. Do I have a seconder? Jimmy Chen. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Now, that brings us to...